The Houma Nation is on the front of people's minds when speaking on native tribes in South Louisiana, especially where I'm from in the South Louisiana region. Now, we couldn't bring you this video without our Patreon supporters. As a subscriber, you get access to exclusive videos and more. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/LouisianaDread. Now let's dive deep into one of the most unique cultures in America. It's 1682. French explorer René Robert de La Salle is making his way down the mighty Mississippi River, and he hears whispers of a people called the Houma. But it wasn't until 1686 that the Houma actually met Europeans face to face when explorer Henri de Tonty passed through their village. The Houma were a small but fiercely independent Muskogean-speaking people who had built their lives around farming and trade. Jumping to the early 1700s, the Houma originally settled above present-day Baton Rouge, but were forced to move downriver due to pressure from other Native American groups and violent raids by European traders and their allies. The Tunica people were one of these groups, and they took over Houma land. In 1706, things turned deadly when the Tunica launched an attack that nearly wiped out the Houma people completely. The survivors had no choice but to move further south, seeking safety among the French colonists. They settled on rich, fertile land near Lake Pontchartrain, growing corn and beans, raising chickens, and bringing their goods to the markets of a new city called New Orleans. By the 1720s, they had formed a strong alliance with the French. Not only did their small numbers fool you, in 1699, Pierre Lemoyne Sieur d'Iberville counted only 350 Houma men, but they were an essential part of early Louisiana. They worked as scouts, assisted in military conflicts, and were crucial to French colonial survival. By the 1730s, they had settled into two villages on opposite sides of the Mississippi River, with the French recognizing the eastern settlement as their political center. However, by the 1760s, the two groups reunited on the western side, spurred by major changes in global politics. The French and Indian War shook everything up. In 1763, France lost the war and handed over all land east of the Mississippi, except the Isle of Orleans, to the British. What's more, they secretly gave Louisiana west of the river to Spain the year before. But here's the thing, nobody told the Native American nations about these land deals. Understandably, the Houma, along with other tribes, weren't too happy when they eventually found out. Now, in response, many Houma left British-controlled territory and moved westward into Spanish Louisiana, hoping for better treatment. But instead of putting all their trust in Spain, the Houma played their cards wisely, negotiating with the French, Spanish, and British, always looking for the best trade and political deals. And their efforts would pay off. In 1769, Spanish Governor Alejandro O'Reilly officially recognized the Houma, inviting their chief to New Orleans for a grand ceremony and gifting him a medal as a sign of Spanish goodwill. Throughout the 18th century, the Houma adapted and persevered. They balanced farming, hunting, fishing, and trade, spending the warm months producing food and the colder months selling their goods in New Orleans. It's a cycle that continued well into the American era as they fought to hold on to their land, identity, and their way of life. Now comes the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, changing everything. Now, under U.S. rule, the Houma had to navigate an entirely new government that had little regard for Native American land claims. Though the Houma made efforts to gain federal recognition, even meeting with Territorial Governor William C.C. Claiborne in 1806 and again in 1811, no formal treaties were made and their numbers would dwindle. By Claiborne's estimate, there were no more than 80 Houma people left at that time. As American settlers poured into Louisiana, tensions escalated, and the Houma were forced further into the bayous of Lafourche and Terrebonne, where they relied on fishing, farming, and traditional crafts for survival. They remained relatively isolated through the first half of the 20th century, maintaining their customs despite the hardships. So much so that there was a collection of Houmas living in palmetto huts in Golden Meadow up until Hurricane Betsy in 1965, and possibly even more recent than that. Interestingly, because of their isolation, the Houma people helped preserve the Louisiana French language, which was fading in other parts of Cajun country. By 1990, over half of the Houma in Terrebonne and Lafourche parishes still spoke Cajun-French as their first language. The fight for recognition continued into modern times. In the mid-20th century, Houma children faced severe educational discrimination, barred from attending white schools and left with substandard settlement schools that only went up to the 7th grade. Many families moved to the outskirts of New Orleans for better schooling, creating an urban Houma community that still exists today. Even after integration in the 1960s, many Houma chose traditional jobs as fishermen, avoiding the discrimination they faced in public schools. Determined to unify, the Houma took matters into their own hands. In 1979, 2 tribal organizations merged to form the United Houmas Nation, which the state of Louisiana officially recognized in 1977. However, despite submitting a petition for federal recognition in 1985, the U.S. government denied the request in 1994. But the Houma people have not given up. Today, the United Houmas Nation has around 17,000 members, continuing their fight for recognition and preserving their traditions. One of these traditions is deeply tied to the land. The Yakani Ekelana Community Garden and Food Forest, also known as the Land Between Gardens, is a project dedicated to preserving Houma agricultural heritage. Nestled between Bayou Cane and Bayou Blue, this land has been home to the Houma for generations. It serves as both a tribute to their history and a means to combat modern health challenges through sustainable food. The story of the Houma Nation is one of resilience, adaptation, and unwavering pride in their heritage. And this is just one chapter of Louisiana's incredible history. If you want to hear more about Louisiana's hidden history and incredible folklore, please be sure to subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/LouisianaDread. Every subscription helps us to keep these stories alive. My name is Kyle Crosby, and this has been Louisiana Dread Quick History.